All right, this is the Enfield Planning Board. It's Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026, and I am calling the meeting to order at 6:30 PM. Members, excuse me, members present from my left.
Eric Russell.
Dan Kiley.
I'm David Fract.
Tim Jennings.
Paul Bianco.
Bill Griffin, alternate.
Craig Barnhart, alternates.
Ben Jorgensen, alternate.
Okay,
Volunteer
and
staff.
online?
Linda Jones, remote.
Okay, good. Um, I'm assuming that almost everyone is here for the Larrabee Farms hearing. And we have one order of business before that, which is a boundary line adjustment. So I don't think this is going to take more than 5 or 10 minutes. And I will call, well, I've got to read the warning first. This is P26-04-03. William and Catherine Walker, trustees, and Dimitri Deserano have applied for boundary line adjustment approval to reconfigure lot lines between 129 George Hill Road and 65 George Hill Road. The lots are identified as map 9 lot 9 and map 9 lot 9-1. Both properties are located in the R5 Rural Residential District. Property at 129 George Hill is owned by the Walker Revocable Trust, William and Catherine Walker trustees. And the property at 65 George Hill Road is owned by Dimitri Deserano. Christopher Rollins of Rollins Land Survey in Plainfield, New Hampshire is representing both applicants. Chris, you want to come up to the table and tell us what they would like to do?
Thank you.
Rob, do you have something you can put up on the screen?
Sure do. I already started sharing it with the online attendees. Here it is.
I'm Chris Rollins, land surveyor, representing William and Catherine Walker and Dimitri Deserano. They each have properties up on George Hill Road. The Walkers have about 29 acres, and Dimitri has about 5 acres currently. And they have agreed, the Walkers have agreed to convey 7 acres, the piece in the middle, to Dimitri as a boundary line adjustment, and that will increase his land to about 12.1 acres, and the Walkers will have 22 acres left over. There are no driveways proposed. There are some farm openings that have been there for many years, but they are just farm openings in the wall. That's basically what's happening. No new lots. The curious thing is the tax map was quite deficient on the Walker acreage, so the Walkers are ending up probably with more land than they started. So that's a good, everybody's winning all around. And the town will be able to increase the assessment of everybody up there. So,
Is that a win?
well,
Town got
for the
more
town.
acreage. We need you to work more.
Yeah, we'll try. So,
Looks like the new boundary will use some stone walls that are there.
stone walls, existing walls, and it's a nice beautiful area up there, and this will be an improvement. Dimitri likes to take care of his property, and so do the Walkers, and so that's basically it. This was formerly the Ernest and Marion Kidder property. Some of you may have known Ernest and Marion. About 50 years ago, I had the privilege of going into their kitchen and asking them about boundary lines, and you couldn't go in unless you agreed to arm wrestle with Ernest. You didn't win, so, but I did come away with an autographed photograph of Ernest lifting quite a weight. So anyway, that's a memory that now you people have, then I call that up. So that's about all I have to say, I guess.
All right. Are there any questions from board members?
None?
No.
Are there any questions or comments from the public on this boundary line adjustment? Hearing none, I will close, oh,
Did you ask if there's any out there? I know there's some.
I'm sorry, are there, anybody online have any questions or comments on this boundary line?
No.
Okay, hearing none,
Do you want to raise somebody
what?
to a voting member? Because,
Who do we?
Nate.
Nate is not here, okay, you're right. Kurt?
Yeah, I'll go for this one, yeah.
Okay, so we're promoting Kurt to voting status for this hearing, which I now close, and I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the lot line adjustment in case P26-04-03.
Do I hear a second? Motion made and seconded. Because Linda is remote, we will have to do a roll call. Linda, how do you vote on this?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Bill? No, Kurt?
Yeah.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Vote is unanimous.
You have a Mylar?
I do. I'll leave it on there.
Thank you so
If you
much.
have a Mylar, I'll
Yep.
sign it probably on Friday. Good. Okay. Next, we have P260402, DC Development and Construction LLC, Steve Doherty, duly authorized, and Maple Street Enfield Acquisition LLC, John DiBatteno, duly authorized, are seeking final major site plan review approval to construct 86 townhouses and 213 apartments. The development is to be called Laramie Farms. We'll have to decide which it is. The subject parcels are located at 107 Maple Street and identified as map 14, lots 14 and lot 48, with a total of 77.1 acres, and are owned by Maple Street Enfield Acquisitions LLC, John DiBatteno, duly authorized. So now we have some more people coming in. We'll let them sign in, please. And I'm going to try to explain what our procedure is going to be tonight. The first order of business will be to decide as a board if the application is complete. If we vote that it's complete, then we will open the hearing, which I just read the notice for. The next step after that will be to go over the submissions and try to identify things that need clarification, things that we need additional information on. That will be mainly a dialogue between the board and the applicant or the applicant's representative, Mr. Dubay, Carl. We will give the public an opportunity to also comment or ask questions on the completeness of the application. We've been through it to various degrees of detail, and if members of the public have gone through and can reference something that's called for in our site plan regulations that is unclear or is missing, we would certainly appreciate your chiming in with your concerns. Since there's a lot of people here and a lot of people online, we will take comments and questions first from people who are abutters. You know who you are. You got a letter. Then we will open it up to questions and comments from the general public who are not abutters or otherwise statutory participants as defined by state RSAs. I would very much like to give everybody a chance to say their piece before they come around and speak again. So please try to respect that. Please, if somebody has already made the same point or asked the same question that you want to ask, be brief or skip over it. We've got a lot of work to do. My personal goal is that we can complete this hearing or series of hearings looking at the application in somewhere between 6 to 10 hours. It may be less, it may be more, but we've done the heavy lift during the design review phase of it. We've had a lot of discussions, and the plans they're looking fairly complete. The applicants have been responsive to concerns that were raised, and I'm hoping that things will go smoothly. So, Rob, is the application complete?
You guys should have all received a copy of a memo from me. Based on our checklist that's on our website, my opinion is that they've done a good job of satisfying the items on the checklist. We have the copies of large plans. I think you guys, some of you have come and picked up full scale. We've got a few more here if anybody's looking to look at the bigger versions. We have a ton of the 11 by 17 packets in the box next to me. We've received all of the abutters address labels as required. We've received payment for the fees. So it's my opinion that it's complete enough to get started. Obviously, we'll find things in our discussions tonight and probably in the next month or two to ask the applicant to clarify or further outline. But these are high-quality applicants, as you just said, David, and so I'm impressed with the materials they've given us so far, and I think we can proceed.
Okay, before we proceed to a vote, we have to deal with alternates and recusals. Is there anyone on the board who feels they need to recuse themselves due to being an abutter or having already formed an opinion or any other reason why you cannot act objectively and fairly? Linda?
Do you want me to recuse myself?
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, I recuse myself.
All right, Linda is recused. Let's see, Bill, we've already brought, no, you are.
Correct, you need to bring.
We need to bring Kurt on, right?
Well, because I'm coming in as an alternate, if I want to be clear that the applicant doesn't have an issue with another alternate, if I as an alternate do not make a meeting, one of the other alternates that have been through all the meetings sits in as a replacement alternate.
You guys clear on that?
Mr. Chairman, John Cronin for the applicant. Yeah, I think the standard procedure is if a member, whether an applicant or a seated member, does not make a meeting, but there's an alternate who's participated or even just reviewed the record, that they can go forward and
Yeah,
participate.
that's my
So
understanding of how the
Yeah.
board
We have no.
is, but I just want to make sure you're comfortable
Yeah.
with the second, another
Excuse
alternate,
me?
even though they,
For
even if
tonight,
they
we
bid
need
here, but when it's
All right,
formally,
We
so
have-
how about Ben?
Sure, happy to serve.
Okay,
Can you send me a packet?
So,
all right, so
is that tonight?
now that we,
Who
what?
are our alternates tonight?
Our alternates tonight are Ben Jorgensen and Kurt Goddard. So, can I have a motion on the completeness of the application and whether the board should accept it?
I move to accept the application as complete.
Motion made by Ben Jorgensen
Second.
and seconded by Dan Kiley. All in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, discussion, okay. Paul?
On the applicant first page, I think one draft denotes that it is a voluntary merger of two lots. I think on this one that I received, that was left blank. Was that just an oversight?
Can I speak? Hi, my name is Carl Dubay with the Dubay Group. That's a good question. On the first page form, I don't have it in front of me, but there's classifications for an application, and this is clearly a site plan. We felt that in New Hampshire processes with a site plan, two lots that are adjacent to each other that are actually part of the site plan would have basically an automatic, they would be merged together as part of a conditional approval. So it's not a lot merger application because that stands on itself, and there's a certain process for a lot merger application that sometimes it's just a lot merger application that involves the assessor and deeds and checking things and all of that, and then they bind them together, then they make a registry recordation. That merger is a type of application. So ours is a site plan application. It just so happens that the condition of approval or any recordation of, condominium areas or easements and everything like that would automatically say that those two lots get merged on the registry plan.
Okay.
We have no issue either noting it on the plan, or if you prefer to have a separate merger document, we can, but I agree with Carl that it's probably not necessary, but whatever your preference is.
I just want to make sure it wasn't omitted, that it would cause a problem with the application.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Right, and we purposely checked the site plan, not the lot merger, because the lot merger would be like a separate sole action. And that's not what this is.
We just did one.
That's correct. You just did one, the gentleman points out. Correct.
Yeah. Okay, more discussion? Hearing none. What?
No, because the public hearing doesn't get opened until after it's been approved as being complete.
I would go along with that. So we are ready for a vote. All in favor? Raise your hands. Opposed? Abstain? Bill, you're not voting?
He's not up. He's not in.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting confused. It's been a long week so far.
That was 7-0.
Okay,
7-0.
okay, 7-0. Okay. A lot of people have gone through the application and the materials that you have submitted. And we've come up with a list of items that we think we would need more information on. Rob, can you put that document up on the screen so
Do you want to make a motion on the regional impact.
Oh, yeah. Okay, what? We'll do the regional impact and then we'll do the hearing.
What was the document you wanted up?
The list of questions.
Do you not want to let him open with a presentation or anything like
Well,
that?
Oh, I'm gonna do a regional.
we're gonna do the regional impact.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that this project be considered a regional impact and that the towns of Canaan, Hanover, and Lebanon, along with the Upper Valley Regional Planning Commission and the Mascoma Valley Regional High School be considered a party to this project.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
High school or school district? School district, I'm sorry, the school district.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Ben has seconded. And is there discussion?
Yeah, what, could you go through the reasons why we feel that way, Dan? Well, the school district, it's going to have an effect in some ways in the case of students. And I'd like to get something from them relative to that. The border towns I see as, it has regional impact, any town basically that I think this would affect would be considered towns that we want to have input from. I mean, it's up to them whether or not they want to put in input.
There's criteria.
Yeah.
Proposal involves 20 or more residential units adjacent to a neighboring municipality, so that's probably the
Right.
qualifier right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any more discussion? Okay. We are going to vote. All in favor of declaring the Laramie Farm application project to be a project of regional impact, indicate by raising your hand. Anybody opposed? It is 7-0. This is a regional impact. So, having gotten all this housekeeping stuff out of the way, I think we can officially open the hearing. And that sets a clock in motion. By state law, we have 65 days in which to reach a decision, but because it is a regional impact, we get an extra 30 days tacked on, which means 90 days. And if we don't finish all of our analysis within that time frame, we will ask for an extension. So, we've opened the hearing, and I've got a list of items. Can you put it up on the screen, Rob?
Again, you don't want to let him sort of have an
Oh,
introductory.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you guys want to make a presentation? Go ahead.
Thank you,
Get right to
Mr. Chair. John Cronin for the record. Again, with me is Carl Dubay, who you know. Also, Mr. DiGatetto is here with us. Mr. Doherty sends his regrets. He had a routine medical procedure today, and despite wanting to come, his doctor advised him to stay home and get better. So we told him we'd try not to mess it up. So we're here tonight and ready to present this case. I mean, in towns like Enfield, and we're fortunate to have a design review process. A lot of towns don't follow that. And this process has been well over a year, maybe close to 2, starting with the variance procedures, which were granted both with respect to height and multiple buildings on one lot. Those variances were appealed and disposed of favorably by the courts. And then we proceeded with the conceptual phase, which laid out pretty much the development, and we had some robust discussion on it, a lot of public input, a lot of requests for changes and so forth. And then I believe at least 2 or 3, I didn't attend all of them, but I attended a few of the design review, which I think each one of the items was vetted and compliments to this board that I think you isolated by category, did a couple of things one meeting and extended it. So I don't want to repeat a lot of what's already been done. I think the plan set speaks for itself, and with having jurisdiction accepted and having it being regional impact, certainly we've treated this from the beginning as regional impact with giving notice to the Planning Commission, not to the school district and some others, but certainly they spread the news and they've been aware of it. They've been given copies, so we welcome their input and any of the other communities in the school district for that matter. Carl's group is experienced. They're at the top of the class when it comes to engineering firms and their plan set in their detail. They've laid it out very well. I think important to note here for some of the people that are tuning in at this process and maybe have not followed it from the beginning, there's a substantial amount of acreage here that's going to be conservation that provides a buffer. I think that's something that was discussed from the early part and something that the town wanted. And for some of the comments that I've heard generally about concerns about some of the things that are, I think, not finalized yet, it's pretty typical for a project of this size. For instance, the DOT has jurisdiction of the driveway permit. And they will review that, and there's some more work to be done with the traffic study, and they're going to tell us what needs to be done. It would be very common for this board to, if they see fit to approve it with conditions subsequent or precedent that would require us to have that driveway permit before any plan was signed. The same would apply for any of the DES permits that we would require. Certainly an AOT permit would be required for a project of this size, and other state permits. The planning board statute 676-4 has a provision in that talks about the wait for those items should not delay the process of this board to review and vet the plan and to move on to approval as they see fit. I don't want to, as I say, repeat what's been done. We're open to suggestions and to conditions that the board may see fit to improve this. We'll also listen carefully to abutter input and the things that we can do within reason that may provide some benefit to the abutters. We'll certainly take into consideration. It's not my property or my money, so I can't agree to it without discussion. But generally, I recommend to clients that when there's opportunities to improve plans, that we do everything within the power and within on economic reason to do that. So I think unless Carl wants something to add, we would let the good folks that came out this evening have their opportunity to speak if there's going to be a public session, or if you want to defer that till the regional impact communities have an opportunity to appear. We have no objection with that either. Our mission this evening was to have the plan approved for jurisdiction and to get a decision on regional impact. But we're happy to take the list of questions. I don't think there's any need for us to go through and speculate and do a really good job for next meeting and respond to those and get you that documentation as soon as we can beforehand. So hopefully we can address it. For other folks too, my understanding is the town has engaged or is about to engage a third-party engineer, again, which is very common, that will provide an extra level of vetting from a trained eye. It's not uncommon in a preliminary review for them to review the plan set and have a host of comments. You know, whether one of the notes is incomplete or like additional language in a note to changing some of the substantive items on the plan. And the typical process of Carl and his team to review those to satisfy your third-party engineer, to the extent that we can't, you know, have a discussion with this board about what a reasonable compromise might be. But I think that's further downstream. So I think unless the board has any specific questions or wants me to expound in more detail, the only other item, I know water has been a big issue since the beginning, and the town is engaged in a capacity study. It's our understanding that generally there's a belief that there is sufficient water, but that will be confirmed in this process. And if it's not done by the time you're ready to vote, we would expect that to be a condition of approval.
Okay. Board have any questions?
It's a general question. You mentioned agreements or discussions you may have had with abutters. How should those be memorialized in terms of?
In this case, I don't want to mislead. I may have spoken to some at the ZBA, but not in this case. I was speaking generally for projects that I do across the state.
So
And if a butter came in and said, for example, I would like a couple of arborvitaes that block this, or I want to make sure that this light, even though we meet the regulations and we have zero spill, they might be concerned that a light, for instance, is going to flash in their backyard or invade the, yeah, okay, we'll put a different shield on it, or we'll ask the planning board if we can remove that light. And a lot of times we can memorialize that in a condition, if it's relevant to the regulations, right? If it's something beyond what the regulations require, that's gonna be John and Steve's decision, is to, sit down and say, what can we do here within reason? And, typically we can get to a spot that is helpful, and I've had, other instances where people have said, build me a new house, which is probably not within the range of reason. So you can do it a number of different ways. Either conditions, I would suggest the board probably wouldn't want to get involved with private agreements if they exceeded your regulations, and that would be something for our team to deal with in the abutters. And I think, at some point, I generally make myself available. I know there's a lot of people here, whether by email or call, particularly to the abutters, to reach out to me, and if we can have a conversation with them or sit down with them, we would generally do that.
Okay, and people can get a hold of you, your contact information through Rob?
I'll say it right now. My office number is 603-624-4333. And my email is jcronin, C-R-O-N-I-N, @C as in Charlie, B as in Bravo, Z as in Zulu, LAW.com.
Okay. Hopefully everybody wrote that down.
And, depending on the volume, I do get a lot of emails. I'll do my best to get back.
Sure. Okay, so I guess next I'd like to get to things that we think might need to be addressed or supplied. And Rob, would you put that on the screen now? Okay, and this is organized by sheet of your blueprints, Carl, just for ease of referencing. So the first question, and I believe our fire chief has brought this up as well. Does the 26-foot road width provide adequate turn radius for one of our fire trucks, or in the event of something even more major, one of the larger trucks that would come in from mutual aid?
So, number one is, I love these lists, by the way, when you do this, or even the butters. It's really good. It keeps us organized, and we have, as you know, a very positive, proactive approach to these.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can't wait to get this back to our office so we can actually address any, and fill in any holes or provide the information. That's great. So the access easements shown on sheet 8 actually are portrayed in more detail on the site layout plans and grading utility plans and everything. So when we actually designed this project, the first thing we did was to make sure that we can do a lot better with the access that's existing out there already, and then even provide really, really good access for DPW trucks, EMS, fire trucks, everything. So usually what we would do is supplement with a truck turning template that runs a fire truck or bigger trucks up through the project and shows how they can get in and get out appropriately. So usually the town or the jurisdictional authority with the fire chief would ask for that, and we'd provide it. And we do have very, very robust aisles and turning radii and access, a protected access driveway to the water tower. the water tank with gates and also NFPA compliant access drive right into the tower proper, the tank proper, with separated and protected turning radii for that. So we will depict that on the plan. We'll show that. And as we go along, we will be annotating any changes that we make or any additional information. We'll track those with revision markups or additional sheets or anything like that. So we'll probably end up numbering these comments so that we can always, comment number 7, what about that? You know, that type of thing. So we can always point to it and say that and actually come back to you with the additional information. So we're confident we can actually accommodate those areas, and we will show that with industry standard truck swept path plans and everything.
Okay, I knew you had a way of doing it.
Yeah.
Could you maybe contact the city of Lebanon and find out what their biggest truck is and, you know,
Sure. And we also do that as well. Towns and cities have different sizes and shaped trucks and models and everything, and we can actually model any truck with our software. We plug in all the criteria and dimensions, turning angles and everything else. So we can do that, and we will do that. We'll provide this information, and typically you would probably continue the hearing to a date certain so that it gives us time to actually act on your requests and all that, get it back to Rob in his office, and also the reviewing engineers. And one final general comment on the reviewing engineers, you know, we look forward to them engaging, and you know, look forward to them, you know, this is a short list. Usually a review, you know, would come in a project like this, you know, there would be a lot of items, and we would address them accordingly. Absolutely.
Okay. Following up on Tim's comment, you might want to contact the town of Hanover's fire department, because they have a large truck that potentially could be called on in a mutual aid situation.
Sure.
So Hanover and Lebanon.
Yes.
So I noticed on the plans that the main access road goes through a corner of the water tank lot. And my question is, has the town decided that they will grant you that easement?
Well, the deeds, the plans, the deeds, the intent of all of that with the easements are that the tank was installed with documents that were, and plans that were recorded at the registry. And all of those in their totality actually infer that they recognize this project, I mean, the property surrounding it could be developed and possibly would be developed. And at that case, then the intent of bringing in the tank at a certain elevation is really what the town wanted for the town benefit, would be the elevation. But certainly, those documents were all set up so that the property owner wholly surrounding the tank could enable a development. And that being said, we are accommodating that and part of the road because the alignment, because we want to make it really nice and safe for water tank access, and also to be cognizant of environmental and other setbacks and qualitative and quantitative, that pieces of those do go through a square that someone drew on the plan. So the tank is round, obviously, in this case, and the parcel is square, and then there's access easements and utility easements come up around that, but there's also other things that we are cognizant of. I'll give you an example. There's a ditch that they put around the tank. Well, that ditch turned into, technically in these days now, it turned into technically a wetland, even though it's man-made. But we want to make sure that that is completely drained, but also protected, and also part of our application materials. So, you know, as a best fit that, and certainly if we had to go to selectmen or anything like that, there would be a process, but we are actually delivering on providing the safety and access and new utilities connections into the tank. We're going to have our own system, But that access part and making sure that that tank proper area and old work that was done around there is refreshed and renewed and safe into today's current standards, which meant that there would be a corner of that lot used for, you know, some of the access and we're also providing a lot of area for access for the town to safely utilize the tank, much more than the town thought that they would need originally. Usually, you know, they just bring up an access easement to the tank and, I don't know, just squeeze your truck in and out of there and try to make it work. Well, now we're providing, you know, a full, like a Cadillac version of that going all the way around the tank, as a matter of fact, and a lot of elbow room for the town. So, but that corner piece would be needed to properly design it, in my opinion, the right way, even though we're giving back a lot more area than that for enjoyment for the town's infrastructure.
Do you think you don't need an easement, or you think the town will grant the easement?
I think that would be Attorney Cronin's, you know, and your attorney to work that out.
I haven't looked at the documents that Carl is referring to in terms of access to that.
Okay.
Whether it's an easement or a petition for layout, there's standards in any community that if the easement's probably simpler, but if they did want to do that, you can petition to lay out a road, which they probably wouldn't want because the maintenance responsibility, that there's standards on, do they have to grant it or not? But I'll look at that for the next time and give you an answer on it, as well as I see a few other legal issues. The distinction, I'm trying to answer these succinctly, conservation easements versus limited conservation easement. You know, a conservation easement generally is something that you don't walk on, you don't touch, it's fence around it or whatever. A limited one allows a lot of things. You can have septic in there, you can have subsurface improvements, you can have trails, just can't have development, so to speak.
Right, and Mr. Chair, and moving on to that next one about the differential between a conservation easement and a limited conservation easement. Those would be and asked to define the word action defined. And certainly we would define that through the attorneys and write up what we usually call the draft legal docs. I usually call them that, the draft legal docs, but those turn into, you know, robust package of legal documents that the attorneys, you know, write and start reviewing back and forth. But bottom line is the project is about 75 acres. 2/3 of the project will be in a conservation easement, 2/3. We're pretty proud of that. And of that 2/3, one is a straightforward conservation easement that's really clean and fully protected. The other one is a limited conservation easement where we just need to build the project around the edges, and then we grade out the slopes and revegetate everything and turn that back into transitional vegetation and everything. And then the intention is to just leave it that way. But so the limited conservation easements are just that. They're the edge areas, they're the areas immediately in the the rear access driveway coming up to the rear of the property. All of those where there's a blending between the actual development itself and the conservation easement itself. There's those transition areas that our intention is to revert them back to naturalization, with the only the caveat that is, you know, we still need to maintain our facilities. The town would want some access to those things as well, and you know, utilities and whatnot. So that's sort of the idea of the two separate easement categories, which our intention when you go out there and look at it when it's all built and grown in, that the limited conservation easements would you know, revert into the transitional naturalized state.
Okay.
On the easement issues, also, I didn't see easements for the, and this is something you're probably gonna have to sort out with the water department, DPW, but easements for the water mains, the service lines up at the curb stops, and then the sewer, at least the sewer gravity mains. Those will all need to be established as well.
Yeah, so we have town water mains that we're actually improving and replacing up to the water tank. And those are, you know, very robust easements. Once we get off the town infrastructure and into the private infrastructure, those will be private utilities that we have to maintain ourselves. We would not have the town maintain them or
I think the
anything like
town's
that.
gonna, I think the town's gonna wanna own those.
So, well, we have, say, water mains through the site, which include hydrants and service lines to different buildings and townhouses and whatnot, and also sewer infrastructure, sewer lines. Once we get off the town properties with the improvements on sewer and water and through, and then we get up into our site, it was our understanding that all of those utilities would be private, and the town obviously would have rights into those, but we would have blanket easements that allow the town to come into the property, obviously, and do whatever they need to do and service or whatever as paying, utility customers. But usually we would not have a specific, meets and bounds on an easement through a private property on the private piping that only serves the buildings. We would be responsible for that. But I think that we can work your needs out with the attorneys and put that into the legal docs and have utility companies or your departments review those.
Yeah, they
So
usually
you have full
define the
access.
center line of the pipe,
Yeah,
10 feet
sure.
either side.
I'll work on that. I mean,
Yeah.
it generally goes two ways. Some towns say, we don't want you doing any of it, we want to do it ourselves, and we'll give you the documents that we want, and you can comment. Other towns say, we don't want to spend the money, we want you to draft it, this is what we want, you send us drafts, and then we'll mark them up. And we can do it either way, but your point is a good one. As I said, I wasn't through all the design review. Typically, water and sewer would get copies of plans, and they come up during that phase. I'm not sure whether they did or not, but we'll reach out to them, or I will, find out what they think is necessary, and we could have a discussion of whether we agree or not, and I'm sure we can get to the point, on my system, I probably have 20 different easements of every type and kind or more, and generally we can get to a document that everybody's comfortable with.
Good. Kurt?
Yeah, since it's on my list on the conservation easements, I didn't see on the plans any delineation of actual boundary lines for the different easements areas. And when you're writing up the language for the easement, will be something that will be required, especially the full easement area, because how do you monitor something when you don't know where the boundaries lines are?
Yeah, so on our easement plans that we put together, we started with the meets and bounds on those easements, and we have those documented, but I think if you're looking for monumentation, so people
No, I
can
didn't
see
see
them.
lines on the plans.
Oh, they're shown on
Yeah, they're there.
sheets, like you can see it, sheet 10, sheet 9, there's a whole set of easement plans that show that. And I think that you might be looking at, I think where you're going with this, and I think we can actually provide this, is on the grading utility plans, we don't show those differential designations for the easement. So in other words, we can copy the easement the lines, the conservation easement lines on top of the grading utility plans by simply turning them on in a CAD layer so you can see everything. So I think that the conservation easement lines should be depicted on the grading and drainage plans, and that'll provide a lot more information. But the easement lines themselves on sheets, 8 plus or minus, those lines are reflective of the grading and revegetation areas. But even on the conservation easements, usually we put in placards, protective placards, especially if we're working with the third-party easement holder, which I think would be the
Upper Valley Land Trust?
Yeah, there you go, yes, sir. So that land trust would also review these easement plans and documentation, and they're gonna want to see certain things. Sometimes they like to have the placards, protective placards and that type of thing, and more logistical items. And Attorney Cronin would usually work with that land trust and their administrators to provide the right language, and then the town would also have input on all that, so that it's a good, good process to go through. But yeah, so sir, if you want the easement shown on any of those additional plans, we can certainly turn them on those views so you can see everything.
At what point in the process will you be actively interfacing with the land trust to hash out the details?
We're ready now. So I think, like, as Attorney Cronin mentioned, we really just needed to start the process with the opening of the hearing. Then it's like, I wouldn't say it's a free-for-all, but it's certainly an open process. That's how we pointed out. And we want to definitely now engage with the Planning Commission, the Regional Planning Commission, and definitely engage with the Land Trust and all of that. And all that can go in parallel.
Okay, very good. Back to the water tank lot for just a second. Is the traffic going that close to the water tank going to have any impact on its stability, particularly during construction when you've got heavy trucks, heavy equipment going up and down that road?
The answer is there will be no impact, but we would provide you the technical information as you need with your review engineers and your water consultant. The area of access actually with the road is mutually beneficial to the town, because now you have a road that's at 10%, which is great, not 20%. And the road in that area crosses the seasonal stream that goes through there at that point, and we have a minimum impact on that. The tank proper itself, we don't have any work immediately against the, right up against the tank at all. There's separation there horizontally and vertically. We're actually improving. Where the tank was placed was right up against that seasonal stream. And the only place that we have access for our road would be in that area also. So we're separated from that substantially, but as soon as we get review comments from your consultants, which would be your engineering consultant and your water consultant, we would then engage. We also have a geotechnical engineering company on our team, and we can certainly, they're already engaged with us, so we can get them on anything that you would like to see.
Carl, you're no doubt gonna do some ledge blasting up there.
The question was blasting.
The reason I'm asking you, your pre-blast surveys could include that tank.
That's correct. So part of our AOT permitting has a provision, and they've upgraded those over the years in terms of blasting. We've done a lot of test pits out there. We've done a lot of borings out there. We would like permission to finish those in and around that area. We stayed away from the tank area with testing on purpose, because we did not want to think that, what are you doing digging a hole next to it? We were not going to dig a hole next to a tank. But we're fairly confident that the area and what we're doing here is primarily fill anyhow around. So, we would not be, cutting substantially around an edge of a tank. We're, number one, horizontally offset from the tank. And number two, we want to make sure that the systems are safe, the seasonal stream that goes through there is safe, and we're crossing over that, set back from the tank. But in those areas, we found where we did test that it's all good material. We don't believe that we're going to be blasting anywhere near that tank, but the town consultants would probably say, well, can you prove that? Can you provide us more information around there if the town allows us to test, not right up against the tank, but around the edges in that easement area where our proposed work is, and we would provide that information, certainly. We would expect to do another round of test pits as the reviewing engineer or the water engineers from the town say, well, we want one here, we want one here, we want one there. And we can't predict where they would want them. We know we meet the criteria for the state permitting with our testing, but if someone says, it'd be a good idea to put that, do this over here, do that, we certainly would do that. The more data, the better. And so that we can add that to the list.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking that maybe not necessarily directly around the tank, but it's somewhere on the site. Do you think you will be doing some blasting?
Very limited,
Yeah, well,
but
even-
I think the question is a fair question, and
The only reason I'm asking is, you have the pre-blast survey done, you know, photograph the dickens out of the tank.
Yeah.
All that's required there, seems like would be a good thing to do.
right, and the pre-blast surveys are required, obviously. But for the entire project itself, like for around the tank area, we're very careful to be very careful with that design and not getting into anything that's aggressive, especially cuts. But overall, the rest of the project, if we're in an open area, you know, that we're allowed to blast with the proper permits, and the proper permits start with the AOT, but as well as construction. So there's a whole blasting program permit that would be required for any blasting. But in answer to your question, I think, you know, our development team, now that we're getting close, we would want to know as well. So we would be adding to our matrix of testing that, you know, borings have been done over the many years, including ones that we've done just recently, as well as testing, and we're going to probably densify that matrix so we can make sure we know what's going on. And, you know, the snow's off the side there, and now we can get up in there and provide a denser matrix. That's not a problem. I just like to coordinate that with the reviewing engineers, so we get the points that they want, instead of us trying to guess. But yes.
Rob, would you kind of flag this discussion about tank stability and test borings as a task for the reviewing engineers? I think that would be appropriate.
And then related to that, I do recall years ago discussions about at some point would the town ever need a second water tank, and that might be worth a comment on, and you know, some thought to where that could go.
A few ideas that we've bounced around is, you know, because 2/3 or maybe 3/4 of the site is in conservation, and you guys are going to be writing this easement along with, you know, Attorney Cronin and your attorneys, is there were discussion about allowances in the conservation easement for future possible town amenities. That could be anything from trails to additional water or additional capacity or elbow room for something, as long as it's something that's like, we have to define what's reasonable, but a lot of times if we're up in elevation and the backside, even if we're not doing anything with it and it's in a conservation easement, I think that the language would contemplate that, you know, if the town thought that they might need an area way out back in the conservation easement, that there would be an allowance written in the deed for the conservation easement to allow the town to do that. And there's usually framework for that, you know, you have to do your own permitting and everything, but at least there might be elevation and land available for you to do stuff like that, and you guys work out, you know, that criteria.
Is that the kind of thing that should be identified now in terms of a specific location?
It's up to you guys, I mean.
Well, in general, I mean, at the far end of the development, beyond the apartment buildings, you know, a second tank up there might be a...
We can put it in the easement to give flexibility to the water department to put it where they see fit, as long as it doesn't materially interfere with the living units. So they wouldn't have to do all the research necessary to site it now.
Mm-hmm.
That we could give them that cover.
Good.
And also access, I mean, we have an access drive coming around the back, and we're putting utilities in there already. We don't need it for water, but for instance, the town may say, well, in someday, we might want to put a water pipe up there, another tank up there. Would you be okay with that? You know, you'd have to have that discussion and integrate that into the deed work. But, you know, we have a drive going all the way out back there, and you have a nice water main right at Maple Street, and, you know, that...
Yeah, the town engineer can address that
Yeah.
with you guys, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, I had flagged, the bus, if I'm understanding the, prints correctly, you've got the bus shelter and a bike rack within a setback area. This would be sheet 19.
Well, that's correct. We have a bus shelter, a bike rack, and obviously it's in the front building setback. I think that probably every bus shelter on earth is probably functionally and safety-wise is on a street, set back from the street, and this is set back from the street sufficiently, but it's on, our property. But typically a bus shelter would be allowed by its functionality in the building setback, because the function of a bus shelter is because you want to have safe access to a bus and someone get up and walk onto the bus from a sidewalk. So it wouldn't be fair to force that bus shelter, further back to meet a building setback. But usually that gets into, what you define as a building, what is subject to building setbacks, front building setbacks specifically here. If a bike rack is subject to a front building setback, I don't believe that they are, but many times, most ordinances out of all of New Hampshire, if you type in, a search on bus shelter, you probably won't see it. But Enfield does enjoy a bus loop and a service, and so usually we don't see that in the ordinance. But I guess I defer to.
I guess the question is, do you have a preferred location for it?
Well, this is part of a larger issue, isn't it? I mean, once you get the DOT requirements, what they're gonna require you to do for that entrance, you may have to do some redesigning on the part that's within your right-of-way, or within your lane.
That's right, it's sliding things back and forth and accommodating what the DOT is demanding of us, and we certainly would do that, because we wouldn't get any approval from you without having a DOT approval as well, whatever infrastructure they wanted.
So the board at some point will be presented with the traffic study, and then the design changes and so forth, and so we can sink our teeth into that.
Right, at the front door, correct, yes.
Yeah. I believe our ordinance defines a structure as an assemblage of materials, either freestanding or set into or anchored in the ground. And by my logic, a bus station or bus shelter would be a structure. And
but there may be reasons you would want it.
Yeah, where I'm going with this conversation is you might need a variance from the zoning board for that particular for the bus shelter within the front setback.
I'll look into it. I think there's a few things in my mind. There's some federal law that might apply.
Okay.
All these projects that I've seen, the bus shelters are generally close. I can't say that they're within the setback, and I don't recall any of those requiring a variance. Whether, we say, hey, bus company, we'll give you whatever land you want to put your bus shelter, and maybe they have an exemption. But my belief is that there's some vehicle that might permit that.
Okay, good.
We'll do the research.
Yep.
But in general, this bus stop is for the advanced transit, the local bus service, as well as the school buses. Is that right?
Believe so, Carl.
Yes, and that discussion is still ongoing, because we would still like the option to, if there's enough demand, for busing to and from Dartmouth, for example, for even just employment. It'd be nice to have that ridership and that convenience, but certainly, yeah, we'll look into that.
Okay. Rationale for putting the bike rack down by the bus station or bus stop.
Well,
I guess I wouldn't want to take my bike, ride it down the hill, lock it on the bike rack, and come back 8 hours or 10 hours later and find my bike wasn't there.
right, I understand that. I think we would basically accommodate whatever the board would like to see on that. You talk to 20 different people about that commuting issue, and you're gonna get 20 different answers and suggestions.
Isn't that kind of an issue that they need to decide, you know, to amenities for their tenants and their clients and so forth? I mean, we don't have any requirement for a bike.
We don't.
So, but if they wanted to put one, there's no reason why they couldn't.
Right,
Albeit for the setback.
I just wanted to raise
Yeah.
the question. And, you know, obviously, once you get your DOT requirements, then that whole area is gonna be subject to some changes.
And we assume the sidewalk to connecting downtown is still in the plans.
Well, we'd like to if the DOT will allow us to accommodate it. Yes, so that's work that's ongoing right now.
Okay.
And, you know, there's a water main through there, and there's a slope and some other things, but our traffic engineer is working on that, and I think you're gonna see a lot of progress on that shortly, very shortly.
Okay.
And if you need an argument, you know, 5.5.5 of our site plan review requires a combination of pedestrian traffic on the adjoining roads, so you could point directly to that requirement.
Okay.
In discussions with them.
Thanks, Eric. The added pump station looks like it's only 7.5 feet from the lot line for the water tower. And if it's going to stay there, I would think a setback variance would be required.
We will research that.
There is a carve out for essential services in our setback,
Yeah.
under the structure definition.
Okay.
I think you could make the,
That would be essential then.
yeah.
And I think you'll find that town's probably gonna wanna own that pump station. So it may be moot anyway, but.
Right, we've reserved that area for essentially, as Rob pointed out, essential services. So we have our own water pump station building that is separate from your tank, obviously, but next to the square property line. That the intent would be to take the water at that base and then bring it into our own separate system and have that separate system take care of all of our stuff. Pressure, you know, distribution, all of that, backup generation and everything. And so that was the intent of that pump station little building, and we look forward to having the town's water engineers review that and then engage, when we've hired our own water engineer, and that company is ready to engage also. We're just waiting to, you know, do that once your engineers are ready to go.
And that pump provides the surface pressure for the sprinkler systems in the buildings?
Essentially, yes, and distribution, because we're at a higher elevation. So obviously, we go even higher than the town tank, so we need to be able to take that water and boost it in many different ways. The townhouses would probably be on 13D, low pressure fire suppression systems, but the apartments buildings beyond that are at a higher elevation and remote. We would need to have some kind of a component that's on our property that's serviced and maintained by you know, our vendors and not the town, to provide that, so the town wouldn't have any, you know, responsibility or anything on that. So it involves pressurization, NFPA, all the NFPA would be obviously required. We have hydrants through the system as well on our own private property for that, and the fire chief and his designee can review all of that, all the way through to the backside of the clubhouse, as a matter of fact, beyond the third apartment building.
One question, David. Would we be better off giving them this list and asking them to respond in writing rather than going through one thing at a time, one by one by one?
Well, we're happy to respond now as we go along, but we would certainly, and now that we're in a final, like a jurisdictional, we would expect you to want us to respond to all of these in writing as well, not just,
Yeah,
me blabbing here at the table, but
That's what I
actually, this has to be documented, and so that we can track all of it and make sure that we're providing you those answers and not just, me blabbing about it.
How about we just try to be succinct?
Quicker.
Don't get into the
Okay.
details.
Sure, we'll go as quick or as slow as you want.
no, I wanted to go through this line by line, mostly for the benefit of the public, so that they would know what we are looking at, what our concerns are, what we think needs to be addressed. So I'd like to continue on that track, but let's see if we can have shorter conversations.
Right, if you want me to just jump through these very quickly and you just tell me to slow down. It's the first time I've seen them, but that's okay. So the dumpster fencing on all sides and landscape buffering would be provided. And I think we had some details on that, but I'm looking at one dumpster area that doesn't show the fence, but the dumpster intent of a dumpster enclosure would have the full fencing and landscaping around it. So we will make sure of that.
To that point, don't really understand the rubbish and recycling handling up there from building to site. They're rather remote. So at some point, we're going to be interested in how you anticipate that the residents are going to accomplish.
Yes, and the townhouse, so we'll address that as well. The townhouse folks would be doing something that is all private pickup as well, but there would be a dumpster provision if they want one, but we can also have the pickup, white glove service, for each unit if they need it. The apartment complex would also, I was talking to the architect on these buildings, usually we provide internal recycling and trash internally to the building as well. A lot of, residents like to have that, it's a nice feature. And, have the dumpster there available as well, but everything would be contained and buffered and landscaped and maintained.
Well, you could summarize all that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. The wing wall, someone said there's a wing wall 9.4 feet from the tank and stability of the tank. I believe the wing wall is further away than that. I think that there's a fence going around the tank, and the wing wall for that seasonal stream crossing would be near that fence. But there's a big gap, between the fence itself and the tank itself. So we'll address all that stuff.
Yeah, that just goes to my whole stability question.
And then the geotech review of that, sure.
Right, so on to ADA parking for the townhouses. I didn't see any.
I will check that. We do have guest parking that's outboard of the townhouse proper drive. Each townhouse has, 2 vehicles plus 2 in their own driveway. And I will check the guest ADA park. We do have an ADA parking space and a mail kiosk, and one of those or 2 of those parking spaces would be, probably 2 would be designated for ADA path of travel, and we'll just verify that and check that and show it.
It's not part of our requirements, but I'm just curious, and maybe you could add a note when you're in your responses. Just ADA in general, are any of the apartments in the big buildings required to be ADA accessible?
Yes, they all are.
Okay.
They all are by federal guidelines to be ADA, and there's criteria with that, with the architecturals and the site and the number of ADA spaces and accommodating ADA needs, as well as adaptability so that if there's a special situation,
You
we
can
we
summarize
even
that.
add more if we have to. This site is really good because, you know, a lot of the areas are already by default, by design, ADA compatible. That's not an issue at all, but we will address the ADA for townhouse guests. If they're not a specific guest to a certain unit, they should still be able to pull into a space, which we have, that is signed and proper path to travel for ADA.
So maybe just a
It was just
a
signage.
narrative that describes
Yeah,
your
yes.
ADA approach
Yes.
to the project.
We will do that.
Okay, snow storage being uphill of walkways. And I was concerned that with freezing and thawing, you might get some icing on the sidewalks.
Without spending too much time on that, if you look at the grading and utility plans, and we can show the snow storage on the grading utility plans, we have positive drainage outboard of those areas, intercept areas beyond the sidewalks. Almost 99%, I have to just check that. So where there's a pocket, we do have intercept slopes and reverse grading that drains away from the roadway infrastructure, not allowing general landscape areas to just spill onto the roadway through a sidewalk. But I will check that, and I will annotate on the plans all of those areas and make sure that we're not doing that. We shouldn't have, you know, big piles of snow that are melting over a sidewalk. So whoever saw that, that's a good point, and we will make sure that that doesn't happen.
You can blame me for that.
Okay.
To Tim's point, one dumpster pad for all 3 apartments.
Well, they're gonna
I
provide
think
a
you've
narrative
addressed
that-
that.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Bike rack for the clubhouse. That might be a nice place to put a bike rack.
What is the clubhouse? That's a new feature.
Well, yeah, the board asked us for, and rightly so through the regulations, it says that you need to provide, you know, recreation and that type of, you know, fun activity or socialization on the site itself. And so you suggested earlier at one meeting that, you know, where's your clubhouse? So, you know, we have a fairly large clubhouse in the package now, with a plaza outside, patios outside, you know, for socialization. So certainly we should add a bike rack to the clubhouse area. And there's really nice areas for that on the patio area.
Yeah.
That's, you know, adjacent to the clubhouse.
Could you provide just a narrative about what features are in the clubhouse? What's intended for that?
Is that
Yes.
our purview? Tim, is that our purview?
Yeah, because well, it's a section, yes it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has to do with recreation.
Okay. No, I just didn't know if we could specify what was inside buildings.
I don't know that we could specify. I think we just have to ensure that there are facilities.
Sure. And we'll add that, even if it was just a site narrative, we can't resist, we'll expand that narrative into the clubhouse areas, because there's also areas inside the apartment buildings for certain things and activities. The clubhouse is uniquely situated there, where it's like more open space, and, you know, we have a dog park nearby, near the clubhouse. We have lots of sidewalks everywhere. Those could go into trailheads that we're showing that go into the conservation easements for trails and everything. So it'll be a fun area. I shouldn't call it fun, but it'll be an area that accommodates different types of needs and desires for some sort of on-site recreation.
Well then, along those veins, the site plans don't show the trails that are on the cover sheet actually being constructed, so we'll need to know what the intent there is.
Yes, and we would, that would be part of the legal docs as well, and many times the legal docs say, through the conservation easement, we want trails, we want a lot of them. We don't know where they're gonna go yet, because we want the land trust to have some input to that, as well as the Conservation Commission have input on trails. And for the most part, even some of the abutters, yeah, you know, so we want to, you know, avoid abutters where we can, unless the abutter wants a trail through there, near them, but we usually try to keep them in the woods and keep them around certain features that we're not taking out, in between the trails and the trees and everything. So usually that's depicted in the legal docs where the town has a right and the property owner has a right to put in trails, as long as they're, not for, sometimes they're not for motorized vehicles. It really depends on what you guys want, what the land trust would suggest in the town.
Well, I think my interest here is, personally, is that as part of the recreation package, we talked about the trails, and so, okay, that's great. They're shown on the cover sheet, but I don't know, some sort of commitment to build a certain linear footage of foot trail, location designed to be determined.
Yeah. So I think we talked about that at a previous hearing. We're trying to put trail packaging together that might suggest that there's connections to other properties, that people had mentioned that they wanted to see that.
Before you get too far with that, I'm just going to stop you because it's a lot of liability issues that go with trails and indemnification and municipal immunity. And I want to make sure that we're not making commitments that we can't meet.
Okay.
So we'll look at it.
That sounds
If
fair.
you want trails and we can put them, we'll work with you to cite them properly.
Okay.
Good.
Can we add another comment about recreation? We mentioned it in the conceptual hearings about there's no exterior, I don't want to call it a sports field, I'm not thinking soccer field, but there's just no area like that to toss a frisbee and play outdoors. And I think that would be something that really ought to be up there. We got roughly 500 or 600 people living up there, and otherwise for that kind of thing, they're going to have to drive downtown.
Isn't that where we want them? Isn't that where we want them?
Yeah.
You don't want them playing soccer on Main Street, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have town facilities that are downtown for recreation.
I think we're getting deep in the weeds.
Yeah, let's.
I don't think we can tell them what type of facilities they want to have, what type of recreations they want to have there. If they're going to have spots that people can congregate, then I think that's what we're looking for. I don't think we're looking for volleyball courts and.
Well, why wouldn't we be? I mean,
because we don't. Because that's not
It's not
ours.
what we do.
It's not our purview. When you say recreation, it's what their people want. Who they're going to be either selling the properties to or renting at the properties. If they decide they want to have pool tables in the community building, then they can have pool tables. If they don't, and we say, well, we want you to have ping pong, well, they don't want ping pong. I mean, I think we're getting real deep in the weeds as to what's going to be in their buildings.
And we're way beyond site plan.
Right.
So let's move on to dog park, which I apparently misremembered. I thought we had cut it, but Bill reminded me that we in fact had wanted to keep it in.
Oh, isn't that getting into what we just did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know how you draw the line here. I'm
Right.
just throwing some suggestions out. That's all.
So the only comment I would make on that is that current dog park construction design, try to avoid right angle corners, because if you get a group of dogs ganging up on one, they would corner that dog. So a bit of a radius
Yes, we
in
do have
that
it.
fencing.
And that little dog park area is, just to exercise, and it's actually socialization with the dog owners as well. But and we have so we will round those corners, and also we even have a entry little corral with gates on that dog park users like to have for various reasons.
Yeah.
And so that suggestion is warranted, and we will add that to our narrative and update the plans so that there's no angles there.
Yep. Moving on to page 25, which is the townhouses on May Street. Maple Street, I'm sorry. Have you talked to the town yet about a driveway permit? And are the curb cuts for the 4 townhouses too close together?
So, so we have 4 units there. We used to have 6, I think, but we're down to 4 here.
Yeah.
And the driveways, you know, are separated, but there's one driveway curb cut on Maple Street for that stretch of 4. And we welcome to talk to, you know, through Rob's office, anybody at the town, the DPW, or, you know, road agent, or any of those, about in those services, that configuration.
Yeah, I would suggest you touch base with Jim Taylor, who's our DPW guy, and I think he would have some input on that.
Okay, and
that arrangement is not something that we would typically permit in any other section, any other street in town.
Well, that's why he needs to touch base with DPW, with Jim.
It's tight for the grading, but, we'll look at options and engage. Now that we have, you know, you have jurisdiction over an application, now we can engage with any of those individuals, and we can look at options on that. Certainly, that's not an issue.
And also, how are you gonna handle trash and recycling for those 4 units?
Those would be private vendors, but we would, these 4 units would actually be part of the condominium association, but a sub-association, because, you know, they're on Maple Street instead of the rest of the project. But they would, all of that would be addressed, and we're engaging now to do that. Those are good points.
Your underground utilities, electric, water, sewer, is putting them underneath the pavement the optimal placement? Because if you have a problem, then you have to dig up the pavement. And I don't know the answer to that question, but I would welcome your input.
What area are you talking about?
The whole place.
Oh, the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's typically how we would do townhouses. We have individual services to each unit, which unit owners like. That it's a better assessment as well, better control. So we have individual water services to each unit, not, you know, going into a building of townhouses. We can do it either way. But yeah, typically all that infrastructure would be under the pavement, and the valve boxes and shutoffs can either be in the front yards or in the pavement. Many municipalities like them in the pavement because you can get to them. You can get to a valve box, you know, that's, if you notice, I think most, if not all of our hydrant valves, everything is accessible. You'll see that's not underneath a parking space, you know, all of that. So, but we'd be happy to get you, now that you have that input, we will study that and address that in writing and make any plan changes that we need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not see anything on the prints for telephone, internet, cable TV.
So usually on a site plan, we would start with the generalized underground electric routing with transformer areas. You know, many site plans, as you've probably seen before, they forget to show those. But that starts with the project. We do have room for all of that. We showed on the plans. Then, now that these are maturing, we can reach out to the utility companies that are jurisdictional, and then their engineers, their engineer departments, they draw on the plans what they want for separate conduits for separate boxes, as you know. So not just transformer boxes, but, you know, sector boxes and pull boxes and, you know, for various things, as you mentioned, so telecommunications and all that, it's not just electric power. So they would draw those items up, and then we would, to what they want, and then we would transform those onto our plans so you can see that. But the general routing, we have protected areas for all the underground electric. We did indeed show it all on our plans, and usually that's a duct bank system that has power ducts as well as sweeps and separate ducting for the telecommunications, separated from those in their own separate duct banks. And so we have generous areas for the transformer pads that have a lot more elbow room to do sector boxes in between and along the way. So we fully expect to actually add that detail once we get the input from the electric power companies. Yep.
Very good. Your maintenance of landscaping, I would really like to see a sentence or clause that says that if vegetation dies off, that it gets replaced within the planting season.
And you are absolutely correct. And I believe we have, I won't go into it, but in our landscape details, there's several notes that we would have standard industry notes on there, and I think we have them in there, but I don't want to have to waste your time.
Yeah.
But we will make sure that that's in there. Everything's guaranteed, you know, everything is replaced accordingly and managed and, you know, maintained, you know, by professional landscape companies as well.
Right.
But yeah, certainly that is a requirement that would be expected, and it might already all be on the notes on the plans, but if they're not, we're gonna add them.
I did not see anything beyond the 1-year guarantee.
Okay, all right.
Let's see, I did not see any specs or locations, for wall pack lighting units.
So, typically on a site lighting plan, we would show the major fixtures that provide, you know, the general common light areas, and those, you know, are all dark sky friendly and all that stuff that we talked about earlier. Usually, and we might have even had this note on here already as well, is that I think I did, I'll find it. For instance, in the townhouse development, there would be a common circuitry that would have minimum security lighting and lanterns that light, you know, porch lights typically, or the lanterns that are serving the front of your garage. Typically, those would be on photo cells and timers, and a minimum number of those would be lit as part of a condominium ownership package that would provide light in that immediate area, so that we're not, you know, overlighting the driveways or access road between the units. But those are typically, there's code light, security light, all of that would be controlled on separate circuits that would provide the additional ambiance and lighting, you know, in those courtyard, you know, those front areas.
Yeah, so that would be essentially billed to the condominium association?
Sometimes they are, sometimes they're part of the unit owner electric bill, but this, you know, they're very, you know, there's LED lighting that's, you know, 5 watts. So it's not much, and you would typically have that anyhow, but we just want to make sure that, you know, not everyone turns all their lights off, that there's a minimum amount that is, you know, usually people have a little bit.
That note is on lighting plan A, this one here.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Page 59, sheet 59.
yeah, I knew it was in there. I didn't want to look for that,
I missed
at
it.
the same time, but yeah.
Thanks,
we'll,
Ben.
and we'll review that note as well.
I didn't look for this, but we want to make sure that no exterior light has a K factor greater than 3,000.
That's in
3,000 or
there.
under. Good.
I saw that.
That's sheet 69.
On this list, when we go through it, if there's a reference in the plan set, we'll give you a page where you can go to it quickly and find it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And can we add a lighting plan as a review by the town engineer?
I don't see why we couldn't.
We welcome
The
it.
consulting engineer.
Yes,
Consulting
yes.
engineer.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
We do have to note, sir, on page 72, all exterior lighting fixtures to have color temperature 3000 K.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I had seen that.
Okay. I thought we had it on there, but sometimes you have to just check.
No, I get it. I mean, you've got 80 some odd pages. On page D4, why does the aisle width for the ADA parking spaces vary?
That's a typical detail where we should say that there's two parts to that answer. If it's a van space, then it needs to be at least 8 feet wide.
Right.
And the ADA space needs to be at least 8 feet wide. When we do a design, especially for apartment buildings, we 99% of the time don't play that game with 5s. You can even do 5 feet wide if it's non-van space, as you probably know. We like to go 9s everywhere. Now we have a 10 here. I think we did 10 everywhere because you want 10-foot wide spaces. So we just did the maximum width and we didn't reduce them. But I think on that detail, Mr. Chair, we should elaborate on that and say what we're actually providing, which is a lot wider than what the federal ADA guidelines are. But
Okay.
I will address it. So the varies had to do with that. But in this town, on this project, we wanted to make sure everything was like really wide, because you just want that. It should be provided here, and we can do it, and we will clarify that.
Okay, on sheet D12, the big sign at the entrance, I'm pretty sure that would require a variance.
And get rid of it. Why would it?
Because of its size.
You mean the square foot area of Laramie Farm, or?
Well, we have never encountered a request for a sign like that. We don't have anything that specifically permits a sign like that. So I'm thinking it might be appropriate to let the ZBA make a decision.
I think we probably just delete it then.
We'll make it conform. Take a look at it.
Right.
Do we have a sign ordinance?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I get it, what you're saying, and our architect wanted to have some feature,
On the road, it's a sign.
and they're old farm features, and you see that a lot in communities
Yeah.
where you would have, it'd be like welded steel or aluminum, it would say Laramie Farm, an outline above you as you enter, it's set back off the road, obviously.
Yeah.
This is a very nice feature, but if it would need a variance, then we'd probably,
We may do it. Let's just leave that open.
Yeah.
Don't really
yeah,
make it
just,
conform.
just
Regulations and
something to think
regulations,
about.
we'll figure out what they are.
and to your point, Mr. Chair, I think what we would at a minimum need to do is respond to that in writing and say, well, okay, this is what the sign ordinance says, and this is what our architect was proposing, and this is why it doesn't meet it, or if
Or
it made
does meet
it
it.
smaller or something
Yeah.
different. Yeah, or does meet it, and then we will accommodate that.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely.
That would be good. On sheet A200 and A201, I'm seeing a discrepancy between the overall height of the east elevation and the west elevation. And you don't need to respond to it now, but just
Make a note of it.
check it.
Will do.
I don't see any ADA parking spaces in the apartments, in the garage. Is that an
Yeah,
oversight?
no, we had actually talked to the architect about that, and ADA would have to be provided in the garage. And we do have a parking lot layout for that on sheet A100. And they were working on that. I'll give you an example. We probably would have to have a van space, so space 12 might be able to meet it, but there's a post in the way. So those things that we work out with the detailing of the building, but we would certainly provide fair and equitable ADA spaces in the parking garage. That's the right thing to do. It's also required. So the architect, he did say they were putting it on that list and they would address that
Okay,
with the next round.
yeah, good. Let's see, you talked about lot merger earlier, and you decided you probably weren't going to do it, or might do it later, so that takes care of that. At some point, we need to address the town water and sewer, because that's part of our regulations.
Yes, that would be part of the permitting. First, we start with,
Yeah.
We'll get it.
yeah.
Yeah, electric, okay, I talked about that. Is there sprinkler actually in the apartments?
There would be required, yes, NFPA 13R.
Okay,
Well, the big apartment buildings, I think you mean.
That's correct. The apartment buildings would be NFPA 13R, which is the full, as you guys know, the full Monty sprinkler system. Yes, absolutely.
did I miss that on the print, or is it just not there
I think
or
that-
assumed?
That's like that's a baseline requirement. You would never get a building permit without it, and it's part
Okay.
of what we call the MEP packaging, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and then they add
Yeah.
in FP, which is fire
Goes
protection.
with the building permit and the architectural
Okay.
plans.
That's correct, yeah.
You're supposed to give us copies of the deeds.
Well, that's something we can do, so we'll make sure you have them.
Okay. We need a statement of your peak traffic estimate. That's in our regs.
That was included in the traffic report that we submitted as part of the preliminary.
And you'll get
Okay.
you'll get the
But we'll-
full and the
We'll,
traffic study.
we'll need the final.
Yeah, we'll refresh all that, and yeah,
Okay. Again, we talked about the driveway permits and the curb cuts on May Street. Maple, I'm sorry. They both begin with M.
I knew what you were talking about.
And, I guess the rest of it, we've addressed. Obviously, you guys know that a homeowners association, document is gonna have to be crafted. And, that's the end of my list.
We usually do that towards the, when we know what it's gonna look like.
Yeah, I would think
And all
so.
the adjustments are made to the plan, because
Yeah.
we're gonna have to isolate by limited common area, and common area trails will have an impact, so we can definitely handle that and go back and forth and get them to be statutory compliant and what you want.
I expected that you would. Okay, I've monopolized the conversation here.
No, all good stuff.
Board members, any other comments on things that you noticed or think need to be submitted or addressed?
No, you hit the ones.
Couple things, but I'll hold off, let someone else go.
All right, sure.
Yeah, I have some quick ones. On sheet number 7, the top of the page, it has reference plans. The first line has the book and page number, but then the rest of the lines seem to be missing page numbers.
the rest of them are actually plan numbers.
Okay, then just a little note
Sure.
stating that's what that is.
Yes, sir.
Sheet 24. And page, you have the parking spaces. They seem to be on private properties, the other, someone else's lots, the part of the easements, I believe is how that works.
Yes, the town requested us to put in 6 parking spaces on the emergency access drive within the access easement for potential visitors that want to walk
Yeah,
the
no, I was just-
conservation area.
Yeah, between that, the,
Yeah, trail access.
That was trail access.
yes, but the easements seem to be just an 18-foot wide easements. These parking spaces bump out of that. So, unless I'm completely missing something between the easements language and the lot lines,
Well, they can look into that.
Yes, and I think that you or someone else brought that up at some point where, when we're ready, you would prefer to have some parking spaces there if we can fit them, you know,
yeah.
physically. Now we have to check if we can fit them legally, but
Yeah,
and
yeah, that
would
was,
be
that's
more of a
basically my
deed.
question is.
Right, we'd be happy to accommodate them if we're allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it would make, from a trail perspective, it's logical to have some parking spaces so you can access the trail. But if you can't do it legally, then it's a it's a non-issue.
Right. And we would obviously, you know, respect the landowner there, so we'd just have the attorneys check that with the
Yeah.
town, and we would do whatever is allowed.
Kurt, if you don't mind if I add to that.
Yeah.
The gate, I noticed, is at the top of the hill and not near those parking spaces, and just curious your thoughts on that.
The emergency gate.
I thought there were 2 gates, one at the
Yeah,
top
one
and
at the
one at
top
the
and one at the
bottom.
bottom, isn't there?
Yes, sir,
That's my
Okay.
recollection.
That's fine, I didn't see it.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Kurt, anything else?
Yeah, I got a few more.
Go
here.
ahead.
Page 62, they're labeling the emergency access as a pervious surface. How can that,
It's gravel.
yeah, but gravel is not considered pervious from a road perspective.
On what sheet is that?
62? There's pervious gravel, emergency access, the gray and the green are both labeled as pervious. I'm sorry, so the tan and the
Yeah.
green.
This was more informational for the wetland permit and explaining, you know, for the access, that the wetlands for the access and the utilities for the permit. There's no quantifiable requirement for that. We've done this plenty of times, you know, for emergency access, whether paved or gravel. I think there was a suggestion that it be gravel, but meet the fire department
Yeah,
requirements.
that's.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
If it's pervious and you get mud season, you're not getting a truck up it.
Well, there's plenty of, there's standards for fire access drives that are gravel. You see them everywhere, and they're supposed to be maintained, and this would be maintained, obviously.
Right,
All season gravel drives that
Yeah,
that are fire roads and fire access, and
Yeah.
we would meet those standards.
I think the question, Carl,
Right.
if it's not considered to be.
Even if it
Pervious,
was
we'll change
considered
it.
to be pervious or impervious, it doesn't matter with the criteria for the wetland permitting. They would probably like to see it be a fire road, but I'll just follow up on that.
yeah, it's just.
I see what the question, where you're asking, why you're asking, and we'll address
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I mean, if driveways, even
Yep,
gravel driveways are considered part of the pervious surface coverage. And then just sort of it's marked on sheet D5, but the drain covers, the sewer drain covers, roadsides, it's indicated as a crosshatch, and that would be really nice if it stays a crosshatch. Anybody that does road cycling, the older ones where they were just bars, and if the bars were put parallel to,
I don't think they make those anymore.
they don't, okay. I just Growing up,
that reason.
growing up, it was like, oh my God, I'm gonna crash.
Oh,
and
so you're
die.
talking about the,
Bicycle
The grade.
yeah,
Yeah,
the, actually,
the grades, yeah,
the
the
catch
grades.
basin grates.
Yeah,
Some of the
Yeah.
old ones used to be long and skinny.
Yes,
and
yeah,
For a
yeah.
long skinny bike,
Yeah.
you just,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
now they're more of a waffle iron,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
crossed, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know they changed the laws on that.
They got rid of those long skinny ones a long
Yeah.
time ago.
Probably too many lawsuits.
Yeah.
Many people sitting out there watching it happen.
So, you mentioned it's condos, so this is going to be condos or apartments, rentals? What is the,
So there is a condominium package in the plans for that, condominium overview plan and condominium plans A through C. So the townhouses are going to be condominium, each unit would be a separate ownership. Now, they could be all owned by one entity, but
Right.
separately, and they could be rented out that way, or they could be sold to different individuals. But there would be a condominium package on the townhouses. Then because of coordination of maintenance and all of that, insurance purposes, usually on these projects, we would actually condominiumize the 3 pads that the apartments are on as well. And so the apartments would be a part of a association. Those apartments are rentals, but there's still a separate condo package on that pad, so that condo package can properly coordinate legally and insurance-wise with the other condominium association, which would be the townhouses. It's more of a legal construct with, and that's a very common that we do that. So we started, we actually put those plans together to show that would start, and then now the attorneys start writing up all their stuff, and they'll tell us to, edit those plans accordingly. It would have to go to the registry as well.
right, and so there'll be still an overarching management company that manages the property, the structures?
That's correct, and the condo pad format allows the fair and reasonable cost sharing and splitting, because the apartment, pads would have different requirements and costs than the townhouses and responsibilities, and therefore, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause, the road is, as stated, is gonna remain private, it's not gonna be,
Correct.
and so someone has to pay to maintain that, so they don't come in 10 years and say, nobody's maintaining our road, town, take it over, type of thing, so, yeah.
Right.
Anything else, Kurt?
That was, I think, it for me.
Bill or Paul?
I think I only had the 3 things, I believe. You already stated that we'll get the deeds as part of the
I'll get you the
package.
deeds.
Traffic report has already been provided and has that, the number in terms of the traffic flow. And then the other provision, statement of proposed hours of operation, I assume that's for a business and.
That's for a
not an
business,
apartment.
definitely.
I put 24 hours. on it.
24/7.
We hope so.
Yeah, so that's it for me.
Okay, board members, anything else?
Yes.
Jim,
Okay.
one quick one, because I'd like to open it up to the public and the butters.
I'll have more than one.
You have more than one? Okay.
Site plans show what appears to be patios off the rear of each townhome. Are those indeed going to be provided?
Yes, sir.
Yep. And do they have sort of a private backyard or anything like that?
Typically, these.
Area they can claim, I suppose?
Right, so the patios, the condo documents that John usually would write up would explain, when you get closer and closer to each unit, there's, limited common areas, and there might be exclusive use areas that are basically, your patio. And I will coordinate with John on that, as well as, with the architect, what is happening on each patio surface. There's some decks and patios, actually, features on these townhouses, depending on which townhouse you're in. And I just want to provide the board what that typical patio deck package could look like. And, it's typical, we would do that anyhow.
Okay.
In terms of, hardscape or features of screening or, pieces thereof.
On the large apartment buildings, take a look at the design of the entry canopies. I think you're gonna end up with an ice problem.
Which canopy?
The entry canopies, the pedestrian entrances.
On the apartment building?
Yeah, it's a shed roof right onto the sidewalk, and
Those would be, we would actually have
heated sidewalk.
gutters on everything. Because
Okay.
so
Just looking
we'll,
out for your maintenance guy.
we'll
We can
coordinate
move on
that.
from that.
I mean,
It's an architectural.
Yeah, but actually that roof water would be intercepted and put into our storm tech systems that are out there. It's part of our drainage management program as well, so,
Okay.
yeah.
How will the project be phased? Have you thought that through yet?
We mentioned a few things, but as part of our AOT submission, they want to see phasing as well. And so we would do the phasing plan next and provide that to you at our, at our next package
Okay.
for construction phasing, typical construction phasing, yes.
And then, assuming all things went ideally, what would be your anticipated construction schedule?
I think there's a good, healthy demand for these. And, we'd like to build them as reasonably quickly as possible and not string it out, but, that's, maybe John can talk about that.
Typically, the people that have as much invested in time and money in these want to build the day after a project is approved and the appeal period lapses. The reality is you really can't get quotes till you have a final plan set, and a lender's not gonna talk to you until you have a final plan set and your conditions subsequent are done. So, I see them probably in a project like this, if it started within 6 months of final approval, that would be probably rare. Probably more between the 6 months and a year to get it off the ground. The lenders will have all sorts of requirements and various things, but that's typically what you see.
And then a year or two construction period?
I'd say at least a couple of years probably. You'd not build it all at once, of course, and then you've got the two structures. The condominium and its formation will have a lot to do with financing.
Yeah.
Typically does, and depending on how that works, a bank may say, I want to see you build X, Y, and Z first before we advance money for the bigger buildings. And then absorption's a big issue too. Townhouses are easy to fill. Once they get built, there's usually multiple people that want them. You have an apartment building, you have to build it all at once, and you're not gonna rent it all on day one. So you gotta manage that and balance it with the financing requirements.
Okay.
As we get closer, we can probably, fine tune that a little bit, but I'd be leery to give you an early date and then disappoint you.
Okay, and then, I just want to bring this up now. The emergency access lane to Maple Street. I think the town's not going to be keen on that being used for construction access, other than for building of that road and the utilities that are in it. I can't speak for the board on that, but, I don't know, we could discuss that now or later, but it is a topic we're gonna have to address.
On my sheet today that I circulated as this goes forward, to give you an idea of construction, staging, and storage, it's typically something that happens, we can add access. I'm not certain what the best place for that is. Certainly we have flexibility based on your preferences, as long as it makes some sense, right? You want to get people in and out quickly, minimize the turnarounds and the movements on site. But we'll be able to figure out a place where that will happen and how it will happen.
Okay. And we'll probably need to talk about working hour limitations on the.
Yeah, I'm sure you have regulations, probably 7 a.m. to 6 weekdays and maybe limited hours on weekends, but I don't think we'll be asking for any deviation for what your standard schedule is.
Okay,
I'm all set.
you're all set. Anything else from board members? Okay, members of the public.
We'll step down and give them an opportunity for the seats. Is that how you want to do that?
I think they can, speak
Okay,
from
sure.
where they are.
Okay.
Abutters first, we're gonna use the honor system. When you speak, please identify yourself by your name and where you live. And we will start with Ms. Dessert.
Gwen Dessert, 18 Seymour Farm Drive. First, the list that you went over, is that going to be public? Is that going to be like added to the website or whatever that we can access?
We certainly can. Rob, can you get that done somehow? Maybe include it in meeting materials?
And I think it should include all the other topics that other board members added to that list.
We'll put them all up for you.
You know, we
We can share it.
can get this list up tomorrow, and then Rob can work on adding to it, the items that were not on the list but came up.
Yeah, just added to meeting minutes is fine, you know,
Yeah.
to what's on there. So I guess clarification question on the acceptance of the application. You had noted on there, and I think it's the site plan review application checklist, that things were missing. So if things were missing,
Well, let me clarify.
what was supposed to be submitted to be accepted? The
Okay.
checklist, or what is in the site plan?
There is a checklist. It is not complete. That's our fault. It has not been updated since I don't know
The
when.
checklist itself.
The checklist itself.
Yeah.
There are several items which were brought up on the list, which are listed as submission requirements in the regulations. In fairness to the applicant, they relied on the checklist rather than everything that's in the regulation. And I looked at the state statute as well as a couple of court cases. And if they relied on the checklist and in good faith checked off everything that's on the checklist, then I feel that we owe it to them to accept that as being properly filled out and all the submissions made. And that's why we decided to accept the application and then went through a whole list of things that need to be addressed and or submitted, which of course will be done hopefully by our next meeting, but certainly we're not going to make a decision without having that information.
To add to a couple of things that you mentioned on your list, so the wetland impact around the water tower, I did bring up during the special exception meeting through the zoning board. It's not included on that special exception. I was told they didn't have to because it's town land, but I feel if it's a wetland impact, there should be some consideration, especially going through the Conservation Commission as well. And during that time also, I brought up that the town had done, I think it was in 2019, I don't have that with me here, I think it was Horizons did a study on the water asset. And
On the what?
I think it was a water asset study,
Uh-huh.
which cited the land around the tower as a critical asset because of the stability of it. And you did ask about that.
Mhm.
Again, it wasn't addressed during the zoning when I brought that up, but that is something the town had done.
And we will have our consulting engineer take a look at that and offer their opinion.
I would like to try also suggest during the construction times, I know they did the traffic study talks about the peak traffic hours, to avoid those, the school times and the peak traffic. Route 4 is already horrible. traffic-wise, so if we're adding construction vehicles on them during those times. So I know if they say like 7 to 6, you're gonna hit it during peak travel times as well. I had mentioned this during the planning part. I would like an additional buffer between their property and mine. Does not have to be the whole western side, but more so from like the water tower about halfway down to the Route 4 because of potential traffic lights. The way the elevation of the roads to my house, their traffic lights could be coming right into my house. So a more robust buffer than what is on their site plans already.
Are you looking for a fence that's totally opaque or a vegetative
totally
buffer?
Opaque buffer would be preferred. Again, doesn't have to be the whole section, but from the water tower, I guess, a little bit further where it's not going to get into my house anymore.
So like a row of spruce trees that are small when they're installed and it's gonna take several years for them to grow?
What Lebanon has in their zoning is from ground to 6 feet in height with intermittent vegetation from 6 feet to 30 inches in height. Or sorry, 6 feet to 30 inches in height. 1 shade tree or evergreen and 1 understory tree per 300 square feet with evergreen shrubs to include all visual contact from ground to 6 feet tall.
And that would be suitable for you?
Yep.
I think we can work with that.
And I would like to just, back in February, I reached out to Carl and Steve about getting interconnecting driveway easement to my property. I don't see anything of that on the list. It's per the site plan regulations, it's required. I don't remember what item it is, but I don't see that on the easement list. That was sent back in February 9th.
Could you explain that just a bit? I don't quite understand what that is.
Let me pull up. So.
Future provision for access, you know, we talked about that.
That's not a public issue, that's a private issue. But it's a civil issue.
Correct.
So it says it's I think it's 5.5.15 of the site plan regulations. All projects subject to site plan review shall provide interconnecting driveways or easements for future construction of driveways that will provide and promote vehicular and pedestrian access between adjacent lots without accessing the highway to all property lines. And then it goes on.
Yeah, I think that probably the intent of that reg is for more commercial developments, and it would apply to the single development and not necessarily a lot under a different ownership.
That's more a case of on Route 4, that way you cut down on curb cuts if you connect one, if you were to connect Family Dollar to the next building over, you have the connection between them.
12A issue.
Right, it's not
But
a,
if I decide to subdivide my property, then you're then adding even more curb cuts to access those.
Right, but this is also
So
a
this would
private road.
eliminate
it's a
that.
private road. This is a private road,
Well,
right?
I think that doesn't really apply.
Yeah, it says-
What is it you want?
If we ever decide to subdivide and sell our property, because we don't want to live next to the development, then I want access to the back part of my property. It doesn't specify just for
Via one of their
commercial.
roads.
It's not commercial property.
Right,
It's not in the CB district. That part of the land is not in the CB district. And it says, every effort should be made by the planning board to require construction of these driveways in anticipation of future development.
Right.
It does not say commercial development.
Which lot is yours?
Seymour,
I'm to
leave
the,
it alone. Yeah,
I'm just to the east of them.
right.
So I've mentioned this also during the developing, the review phase, the steep slopes. There's two sections that are non-compliant to the zoning regulations. They're even now more non-compliant because there's even more area that is being disturbed based on some of the changes. I'd also like to point out that the more current slope map, the square footage, let's see, for section number 13, the square footage on the previous map showed it as 7,204 square feet and now shows it as 14,000 square feet. It's almost twice the size, but the map itself has not changed. But section 1 and 5 are not compliant with the zoning regulations. And also, based on the zoning, the number of units exceeds what is allowed for the property size. I think when you were reading the hearing, you said 77 acres. Their plan says 75, 74 point whatever. The 4 townhomes are not on public water, so you need an acre each. Again, I don't feel the commercial business district should be included in those calculations because they do not, the CB district does not allow multifamily housing. Even with that included, they're only allowed 291 units. If you don't include the commercial business district, they can only have 281 units because they're doing everything by 4 units per acre, which is not allowed based on the 4 townhomes off of Maple Street. And then I guess the last thing is the wells on the maps. It's not on there anymore. I forgot about the second well. They're dug wells. The one is over by the water tower. The other one is behind my property. I know you mentioned when we talked about the one by the water tower, probably just filling those. Again, these are not on the maps, which is part of the site regulations. And the filling of those wells was not discussed during the wetland special exceptions. I don't know if it has to be, but both of those do fall in the wetland areas.
I could address some of those if you'd like, but.
Just take notes.
Go ahead, Carl.
Take the note, take the note.
Take,
The 4 townhouses.
just briefly.
They would be on public water, the 4 townhouses. The slope number 13, there's 7,000 of undisturbed, 7,000 of disturbed, that adds up to 14. That, we updated that table because we've finished, all the plans. But I will check the slope areas one more time for you, because we did update everything. And things change as you go along, but certainly we have full compliance on all of those criteria. Even if those numbers change, we're still far way over what we need to be. But the attorneys would certainly work out anything with her on that. We'll do the buffers and everything. The 2, they're dug wells that we've walked on. I've seen them both, and for safety reasons, we wouldn't want an animal to get stuck in them. They're very small, little hand dug little holes in the ground with some stone around them, and wouldn't want a child to get stuck in that either. But normally that we're allowed to fill those in because they're man-made, and you can fill them back in. Very, very minor. You couldn't use them as a water supply that would meet any criteria now. But those were shown on original plans. I will add those back onto these plans. It was just a layer that got turned off. But certainly between the attorneys and you, they could discuss. I know Steve Doherty wanted to be here, and he wanted to tell you that he would like to have a discussion with you.
So the townhomes on Maple Street are now going to be on town water and sewer? That's now been extended down there?
No, the town water, the 4 townhomes on Maple Street would be on town water. The water line is right there, right in front of them.
But not sewer?
And, but those would be on septic, and I think that permit was already issued, the septic permit for those. And that's pumped out back, not near Maple Street.
but she raises an issue that, what does the board deal with public comments? Just never.
Okay.
Well, I don't think this is the time to
No, I don't either.
to dive into that issue, but it's something that we should, as a board, we should examine it.
Yeah, is there any way you could write down all that you just said and send it to us so it's documented and we can number it and make sure we get back to you?
And, I mean, I think maybe what we'll wind up doing is having a work session on that topic and invite Ms. Dessert to attend. Okay. Anything else? Any other abutters in the audience? Mr. Conkey?
Yes, hello, my name is Art Conkey. I live at 23 Canaan Street in Canaan. But my concern is about my Maple Street property, which is they're gonna have the right-of-way to put their emergency road through the middle of. My concern is I've asked them multiple times what their plan was with the road as far as width, where they were putting it and everything, because I have a concern with my survey that their roadway could go right through one of my tenants' driveways and into the middle of their yard. So my concern is where are they gonna put the road and what are they gonna do about maintaining it as far as plowing? I wanna make sure that the snow doesn't get plowed into my tenant's living room.
Okay, that's something that you can
We're gonna-
research and address and get back to Mr. Conkey directly.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other abutters in the room? Abutters on, go ahead.
Charlie Crump. I live on Route 4, 175. And it's the first opportunity I've had to really see the directions that the road is going here. I believe I have similar issues with headlights glaring into my house, same as she had. I'd like an opportunity to go back over that, having now seen this. I believe there's more than 2 wells in the back of my house. Pretty sure there's a 3rd well. One of them even had like a 10-foot saw blade on top of it, concrete covering it. So there's more wells up there than what's being accounted for at this point. He's talking 2 small, and knowing that there's at least 1 more very large. So maybe a little bit more time and effort.
Okay, so, Carl, could you meet with him and maybe do a walk around and find those other wells, as well as figure out what the buffer requirement is?
Mr. Chair, could I just make a comment? I expect there'll be a number of comments, and rather than do them one at a time, I'll listen to them, take some notes tonight, and try and come up with a plan. And, you know, if we can do it on 1 time or 2 times, it'd make more sense for everybody. So I'm taking notes here and digesting it, and we'll come up with a game plan. But I don't want to have the burden of having 20 individual meetings. And
Okay. No, that certainly makes a lot of sense. Any other abutters in the room who wish to make any comments or ask any questions? Abutters online? You see any hands up?
Yeah. Nope.
Okay, no abutters online with any questions or comments? Members of the general public in the back.
Hi, my name is Debbie Plitka. I live on Crystal Lake Road. I have 3 questions. One is that when we were going through that list, it looked like page 61 was skipped over, and it was one I wanted to know, and it was the sight lines are measured from where to where, and that was not answered, so I didn't know if we could go back to your list. And it was page 61, so that's number 1. Number 2, when I first came, I remember that we were discussing the amount of traffic coming from 4A and meeting up with Route 4. And originally, I believe that it was considered that Springfield would also be considered in that regional impact as they come down for A as well. And so I was wondering why that's not a part of who we're discussing this with, since so many of those people are coming onto that same intersection. And the last one I have is about ice melt, because I know in certain places where I've lived in the past, when they've used salt and calcium chloride, whatever, to melt ice up above on a hillside, it's going to come down. And I'm wondering if it's going to affect people's wells down below and ruin them. I know people run, you know, the water and sewerage, but there are people still down below that towards Mascoma that this is going to affect. And I was wondering what they're going to use to melt the ice in winter. So those three things.
Okay, to address your first question, which was the town of Springfield, is there a reason why they're not included, Ralph?
Because I didn't put it in the motion. Okay?
Okay, should we include them?
But we can, it doesn't hurt. I'm not sure if it's necessary, but I don't have a problem amending it to say Springfield.
I mean, it can't hurt.
Doesn't hurt.
So, board members amenable to adding Springfield to the
Mr. Chair,
regional impact?
I move to amend the earlier decision of the board to include Springfield in the regional impact communication.
Second.
All right. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Raise your hands. Opposed? 7-0. We will notify Springfield.
And then the height, how it's being measured, where it's being measured from.
Okay, I don't know why I skipped over that, but Carl, if you could speak to that a little bit.
What was that drawing intended to, why is that there?
What's that?
Why is that drawing there, the sight line? Is that a requirement of ours?
Sheet 61 is actually not a sightline sheet. It's actually a, just give me 1 second. I'm hard of hearing, so when I hear that, I can't.
Sure. Same problem.
Oh, all right. So sheet 61 is actually a typical site section. It's not, it doesn't involve sight lines. It's actually looking at the site in general, looking up the site as you go up the hill and then into the townhouses and apartments. And it just shows the relative aspects of grading and cut and fill where we have a balanced site. So if you go up the hill, and we walked it and everything, on the left side and the rear areas especially, we would be cutting. And then that material would be used for the fill on the right side. So we established a ribbon of flat area that the development would go on. That's basically on the 25 acres of the 75 acres. And so we'd be cutting and then filling, and then we just show that site section to scale. And that sheet was a carryover from our conceptual meetings and also all the meetings we had with conservation and ZBA. We decided to leave that sheet in here because it just shows the relative cut and fill and where things are. We have a blow up of that area as well, and shows where we're putting the drainage and treatment devices, storm scepters, the ponds, the access way, and how we're intercepting that water. So it's just a general informational aspect that some of the boards asked for, so we kept the sheet in there.
Okay.
Well, can I just ask, are you measuring, like I know that you're allowed to go up 75 feet because that was the zoning board allowed that, right? Are you measuring from the ground to the height of the top of the building, or are you measuring including the underground garage?
I'll have to verify with that, but I think it was the worst case measurements because the apartment buildings are basically they step the grade through there. So on the left side of the building, it's shorter than the right side of the building because we have a garage parking area. So I will verify all that information with the architect and then summarize that on they have those elevations already, but I'll summarize those with the architect on his sheets.
Okay,
As presented, it's on page 105, labeled as A201, it's the second to the last page. And it's from the bottom of the garage.
With the
Yes.
ice melt, I was just wondering if, I know that in Colorado, they use like beet juice, which is much more effective for melting ice, and it goes down to like, stays activated to -20, whereas salt just stops at 5 degrees, I think, or something like that. I was wondering if there was anything that you would do to mitigate pollution downstream.
I know there's a whole sheet which details, what is it called, green snow?
Yes.
Best practices.
What's the DES certified Green Snow Pro?
Green Snow Pro, yeah.
The DES, and to your point, ma'am, the DES has a standard for that now that it's voluntary, but I think it's going to become quickly a regulation. A lot of towns are adopting it as a requirement, and we're actually voluntarily saying any vendor, any of the snow management on this site would be subject to certified Green Snow Pro winter maintenance professionals. And that's shown on the plans as well in details and everything. There's a whole link to the state standards on that, certifications, and they have to basically, document what they put down and why and how. And a lot of that is just best practices. And some people just throw that stuff everywhere, and they don't need to be. They don't need to use all of that if they're managing the site properly. So that's embedded in this project, but I'll provide more information on that. Yeah.
Anybody online have any questions or comments? We have one.
Unmute yourself.
And please identify
Hi,
yourself.
Yep, hi, this is Brenda Martin. I live at 30 Moose Mountain Road. Our property is across the street from where the 4 townhouses are going. And I'm curious, I actually wanted to ask about the trail and that proposed parking lot for the trail. Is that something that the town is going to own, or is that private property?
Well, and this gentleman, I believe, owns the property, and we have an easement on the left side of his property, that particular lot, for that. And the question was on the trails, and then the parking that the town wanted to see, those 6 spaces. If it's, those are like voluntary. If we could do it, that's great. But if we can't do it, and by law and working with this gentleman and the attorneys, then obviously we wouldn't be able to do that. But that's a checklist item that you guys brought up that we are going to address. It's part of our action items that you guys want some more information.
I just want to publicly share my concern. On the other side of my property, the town of Enfield purchased a piece of land known as the Enfield Reservoir. There's a Harris Brook parking lot with access to the trail. It is not monitored on a regular basis by the town. It is turned into a dumping ground. My family and I have picked up garbage bag after garbage bag after garbage bag of beer cans and trash and mattresses, and you name it, it's been dumped. So if a parking lot and entrance to proposed trails, I think, is a wonderful idea. We live in a beautiful part of the town, but I'm concerned about it becoming another dumping ground. And Moose Mountain Road is known for like a place to go party, and so I'm definitely concerned about the traffic, the garbage, and so on.
So every one of these cases with trails is problematic. Nobody wants the liability. Would you invite the public to come on? 99% of the people are responsible. Some are not. And the town has immunity. Some towns want their conservation commission to own it and control it. Generally, they don't want to for the management pieces. So we're going to have to work those things out. My recommendation to clients is generally be very careful with unlimited public access. because it can create a lot of problems, particularly in an apartment community. So we can have that conversation. I understand you, ma'am, to say your preference would be not to have unlimited public access?
If we have public access, I just want to make sure that the parking lot is monitored. If there are trash receptacles, that they are preventable. There's been a lot of problems with things getting dumped on this road. One last question, and I just throw this out there, maybe I'm too late to the game, but the townhouses and the impact to the land and drainage, if there's going to be any type of, survey or looking into the drainage, my husband and I would like to be included in that because our property is across the street and I'd be concerned about, runoff and how that could potentially impact our property.
There is a great big thick binder having to do with drainage and all of that stuff. Rob, you still have 1 or 2 copies of that? And you are certainly welcome to come to Rob's office and he would probably lend it to you.
Okay, I'd like that. Thank you.
And then if you have further questions after reading that document, then I'm sure the developer or Carl would be very happy to address your questions. All right.
Thank you very much.
KS, is that Kate?
Yes, Kate Plumley Stewart. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So I have 2 questions I'm asking as a private individual. First is that I could hear that you added Springfield to the regional impact considerations. I couldn't hear why because I'm online. I'm sure it's just too far from the owl and I don't have it turned up enough. Could you say why again?
Okay, so there was a question regarding the traffic impact at the 4 and 4A intersection. And one of the people here in the room made the point that a lot of the traffic from 4A originates in Springfield. So whether that is the case or not, Springfield is a town that shares part of our border, and all we have to do is mail them a set of plans. If they want to respond to it, they can. If they want to not respond, that's also their prerogative.
Okay, so just as a follow-up, you did Springfield, but by that logic, Grafton is an immediate, right? Right across the 4A line before you hit Springfield. Now, there are some folks who come in off of Bog Road, same with Grantham, but I think you did one and then not another by that logic. So I was just curious how that played out. And then my next question is regarding, you guys keep saying Upper Valley Land Trust. Is that set in stone? Has there been some consideration made for other land trust entities? I'm specifically thinking of the Society for Protection of New Hampshire Forests. They also have similar programs and trails and are probably a little less commercial, but I didn't know if there was some kind of distinct preference or if there had been a discussion around that.
I don't think the planning board has discussed it. I want to note that the Conservation Commission did send a letter to the planning board, which we'll give you a copy of. Most of it is questions dealing with easements, which we've touched on tonight. And there's a question on pervious pavement and another on a water salt runoff management plan, which again, we flagged that as something that people would like more information on. So Rob, if you have not sent the conservation people's letter to Carl, did the rest of the board get that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You will have a copy of it. Shirley? You're on the conservation. You signed that letter.
Yes. Shirley Green, 69 Algonquin, and I am speaking on behalf of the Conservation Commission. And at the outset, I'd like to say, overall, we have found and appreciate that our questions and concerns have been addressed by the developers. And in fact, during the zoning process, and also at that time we had some questions, and its representatives spent a day with us at 3 developments, one that was 20 years old, one that was 10 years old, and one that was in the process right now. And they showed us how some of our questions, how they had been addressed, and we were impressed with it. But we do, like I said in the letter, we do have questions about the conservation easements. We're wondering if they have been in touch with the land trust and at what stage it's at. And you will see that letter, but I'm also like to add, I'm hoping that you can keep us informed and as you move through this process, and keep us involved as you have been all along, and listen to our concerns.
Fair comment, we will do that.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeley,
Yes, I have
state your name and where you
Stevie
live.
Alfiero, Lock Haven Road, Enfield. I'm going to give you a copy, but I would like to read this memo that I wrote. I worked very hard on it, and many hours, and it's to the Enfield Planning Board. I'm writing to formally submit my concerns regarding the proposed Laramie Farms development, specifically regarding the building height variances and the resulting visual impact on the town's scenic character and night skies impact on land use on proposed project. Based on an analysis of the proposed building height, 70 feet, in relation to the local topography, gotta help me out here, and the surrounding eastern ridges of Enfield, the light spread and visual buffer data provided by the developers appear to be insufficient for the following reasons. Vertical relationship and line of sight, while the developers' plans focus on the impact of the street level on Maple Street. They fail to account for the line of sight from Enfield's eastern elevations. The pedestal effect, they call it. The project site sits on a ridge at an elevation of approximately 800 and 900 feet, with the proposed 73 buildings, 73-foot buildings. The roof lines will reach approximately 793 feet above the level. Vantage point disparity, residents on Jones Hill at a 1390 foot, or 319 feet, and George Hill, 1,330 feet, sit between 350 and 428 feet higher than the top of these buildings. Ineffectiveness of buffers at these elevations, residents are looking down onto a complex tree line and shielding proposed at the site level, and will be physically incapable of blocking the light from 300 apartment units in outside areas from this stadium view perspective. Impact on rural character and scenic byways. Enfield's master plan emphasizes the preservation of rural character. And the master plan, in its 3 years of development, keeping the rural character was continually requested through the many surveys and through the workshops, not just the 12 that was picked out for the master plan. There were a lot. Okay, contrast. Currently, the western horizon from the east side and the Canaan border is defined by the dark silhouette of Moose Mountain Range, South Knob at 1846. That South Knob is up beyond the development. That's what they call that. So, okay, luminous intensity. The introduction of a 73-foot illuminated structure roughly doubles the town's standard high limit, will create a significant island of light that will be visible from scenic roads across the town, including those in the east side and parts of Canaan. And I say, see attached elevations and skyline. I have a copy of this for all of you. Tropical and environment degradation. The proposal to regrade or blast the steep slopes and the bridge, the existing wetlands to accommodate this density is a major concern. Removing the natural ledge and mature vegetation on that ridge removes existing natural, wait a minute, sound and light, I got it right, yeah, sound and light barrier for the village. The current data focuses on light trespass, ground level spill, but ignores the sky glow and directs the line of sight impact on the rest of the community. Municipal cost versus tax revenue. Shift capacity. Is there 24 or more calls for fire emergency and the town says they can handle in the long run since we have volunteers or on call. Model breaks and the town has to hit for more full-time staff would be one of the most single biggest jumps in taxes. All municipal departments would be put into the additional action, creating a need for more tax revenue. The possibly additional 600 people will certainly put a strain on all other departments and schools. Regional impact study by the Sunapee Regional Planning Commission is required by the regulations. However, they have been hired to work on the zoning ordinance by a housing grant. I would think at this stage, it is a conflict of interest. That should be addressed. An impact statement needs to look at the region and get a say in the traffic and the environmental studies. Very important. Wetlands are a critical part of the particular 77 acres, mostly to slow the runoff down from the mountain and in the long run adds to our water sources as the aquifer is made available to possible future use. There's significant wildlife habitat across the knob of Moose Mountain, leading to the parts of the wetlands and the surrounding forest. I have an addendum which gives you some figures of the heights and where they would affect. So it's attached to this.
Okay, Seeley?
And I respectfully submit this.
Okay, do you have copies for everybody?
Yes, I do. For the planning
Okay.
board, I do. I ran out of paper, but see, it's like cut and paste. I'm not good at anything.
All right, thank you.
And I have a mat, and I have a, I have one here.
Thank you.
What was I gonna say? I forgot it. I'm tired, been working.
Good eyes to read.
And, you wanna pass this around?
Yeah.
Give me anything that's left over. There might be, I probably ran out of addendums. I think I did.
Better glasses.
Put them because I can't. I got shaky hand on that.
Okay. All right,
So,
Seeley,
This is my plea.
thank you.
You have to really understand rural character. And everybody should know that I know the zoning. I've been almost 50 years working on this stuff in town. Conservation and zoning. So I know what rural character means. And this kind of impact for the whole town is deplorable. And if you do it, people are not gonna be, it's gonna ruin everything. Who wants to, on a hill out in East Canaan, look at the light glow up there? It's not good.
Okay,
Not good.
thank you,
Follow
Seeley.
the zoning ordinance.
Go ahead.
Thomas Lockett, Fockhaven Road. Just, I think I have 3 quick questions. Number 1, where there would be a condo association for the townhouses and whatnot, would it be part of any proposed association plans of not allowing short or long-term rentals of those, since they'll be individually owned by property owners? I know the town has, rules for Airbnbs of,
We do?
having a.
No, we don't.
There wasn't? Okay. I thought, sorry, I thought that passed.
No, it did
My
not.
bad on that one, but, I just fear, or I'd like to know if these could all be like purchased and rented out, or if we'll have, short-term transient Airbnb rentals coming in with new people coming in and out of the town all the time, and they may not have a stake in town interests as residents do, so it can lead to detrimental effects. Second question was on page 80 of the Laramie Farms site plan concerning the Maple Street, sorry, now you got me doing it.
I started something, didn't I?
Yeah. Just wondering what the grid, like the Microsoft Excel type style grid toward the back of that property is. It's laid out in a rectangle and it's got, a grid pattern to it. I didn't understand what.
Isn't that the septic area?
Is that what it is? It just,
Yes,
Septic area.
that's the leach field for the 4 units on page 80. Yeah.
Okay.
That's an EnviroSeptic package.
and then I had another, but now I'm forgetting it because.
Okay, we'll come back to you on a second round if people are willing to stay. Steve Patton.
Steve Patton's Livingston Lodge Road. So I would just again ask if I could please meet with the engineers that's going to be hired so I can talk about drainage and seep contours. Thanks.
Okay, Rob, can you get Travis or somebody from his team in contact with Steve? Okay. Let's take somebody from the Netherworld. Is there anybody? No. Then Sharon Buffet. State your name and where you live.
Sharon Buffet, Enfield, Maple Street. I have a question and I have a suggestion for the
for the developer. My question is, there was supposed to be a traffic study of 4A in addition to Route 4. Was that ever completed?
Do you want to take that, or do you want me to take it, Carl?
You can take it. We did address it, and we talked to DOT about it, our engineer did, but I can follow up on, I'm not sure what the follow-up was, other than DOT saying that it wasn't on their radar screen for a plan.
That's what I remember.
But I think this would probably be brought up with the regional process as well, and rightly so, on that, and try to get the DOT to at least recognize that intersection and put that back on their plan.
Yeah, the board was pretty specific about that.
Yeah. I agree, Tim. Correct. There was 2 requests specifically to ask you to include that in your traffic study, that intersection specifically.
And she did. I will verify that and get you copies of all that, and follow up with her, with the DOT on that.
Okay.
Not the DOT, whoever you hired to do your traffic study. The board asked twice, and it's in the minutes, for you to include that intersection in your traffic study. You're gonna add 300 cars to the 4 traffic in the morning, and everyone that sits at 4A is gonna be there forever.
I will follow up. I mean, we're mainline traffic. It's in another town. I mean, we're not turning anything. That's just an existing.
You're adding 300 cars to the Route 4 traffic that goes through that intersection and impacts the town of Enfield.
It's already a bottleneck. And let's not get into a big debate about it, but you did promise us data from your consultants, and hopefully with that, we can collectively push DOT to add that to their impact study.
I will follow up.
Thank you.
Good.
And then, excuse me, I said I had a suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead, Sharon.
This has to do with your idea for a dog park. I remember discussing this at a previous meeting. I think it's fine to have walking trails that people can walk their dogs on leashes. I think the caution about a dog park, I've been a dog owner my whole life. Enfield has a dog park. Enfield's had lots of challenges with their dog park because people don't police or know their dog's interactions with other dogs. And so that's a potential problem because you have, 300 people or 300 apartments, 600 people who all have 1 or 2 dogs or more. So that's a liability that you could take on, or whoever owns the development, that is really not necessary to provide. You know, you're going to have conservation land. People can walk their dogs on conservation land. And the other thing to consider that this dog park has to do maintenance, because people don't clean up after their dogs. And then the yards get really muddy and then have to be reseeded and they have to be mowed. So it's a whole level of, I don't think you really want to do that, but that's up to you.
Good point. Yeah.
I mean,
good point.
That's an amenity that is certainly not a thing that the board is going to require, and it's the developer's decision, really.
That's your frisbee field.
Anyone else? Dr. Buffet.
Dave Buffet, Maple Street. I was walking up Maple Street this morning, with my dog, and happened to visit one of the neighbors whose yard is on the opposite side of Maple Street from the slope down to, from the ridge. Even without the disturbances that are proposed, and given the past logging and disturbances that have been up on that ridge and the slopes downhill from that, his yard was very wet. And I would ask that the study looking at wetlands and the downhill distribution of water from that project, take a very close look at the impact on those residents along Maple Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back.
Yes, hi. Ed Rippey, Holly Drive, Enfield. Also a member of the Conservation Commission. And Shirley did a great job explaining our interactions with the folks here who are presenting. And I totally agree that they've been very helpful and very honest and transparent in everything that they've been doing. We raised questions prior to this, and they answered most of the questions. I just wanted to say one thing about one of the answers, and well, a couple of the answers. One thing we asked was to detail how water is treated in wetland areas, how it's going to be affected by this project, and also that hydrology studies be done throughout the site to see what's going on. And therefore, we have a 475-page report which talks about all those things. And I don't know, I'm a retired pharmacist, I'm not an engineer or understand flowing of water, other than it can be very ferocious and it can be damaging. But the studies that those 475-page report showed the impact of this development on, in the case of a 25-year flood, a 50-year flood, and a 100-year flood. And it shows that the flow of water will be less than it currently is now. And this is true, right? Am I misreading it, or am I?
I think you're reading it correctly.
Okay.
That was my takeaway.
Okay. So I just wanted to bring that point out. There's been a lot of work done on it, and there's some proof that we're not going to be creating a problem here.
Yeah, that's a document that's actually, I believe, an application to DES, and they will be reviewing it for accuracy. And I think our consulting engineers will also take a look at it. Carl, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that's all correct.
Carl, I think once you get the AOT permit and after construction is completed, I think there's some annual, if not quarterly, maintenance reports that have to be done.
Yes, that's correct. For construction phases as well as post-construction, there's reporting all along that's required.
Yeah, so the town would get a copy of those.
Yes, sir.
Periodic
that's required.
reports. So what they're gonna look at is the condition of the stormwater treatment systems up there periodically, and if they have to replenish vegetation or renew the mediums and that sort of thing, they would have to do that.
I'd just add that, sometimes when you hear it for the first time, it sounds strange. How's it going to be better? And the answer, I hear repeatedly from the experts is that water flows in the path of least resistance when it's not treated. It goes where it wants to go. When you have state-of-the-art type drainage plans and a design, it captures water, it infiltrates water, it manages water, and gets it to the right places with the least impact. And that's why you see the net result being better than in the existing condition.
It's actually recharging the aquifer because it sits in these settling ponds and goes down towards the aquifer. That's my understanding. Shirley?
Yeah. I just wanted to, Shirley Green, 69 Algonquin Road, for the Conservation Commission. I just wanted to verify that was something that the Conservation Commission asks. It's in writing in our request. And we are pleased that it was addressed and that people know the results of that, and it does help, not kind of done correctly.
I didn't know that.
Jean Patton.
Jean Patton, Livingston Lodge Road. I'm going to be the thorn I usually am, and this maybe something out of your purview, I don't know. But sometimes you have to think of the extreme cases. So if this project gets started and gets going, and for some rhyme or reason, the company, the group, whatever, sort of goes defunct, is there any sort of protections of any sort that the town can have in place so that this doesn't land in the town's lap?
I believe part of our site plan regulation allows us to collect a bond, a performance bond or completion bond. And that's something that I'm sure the town attorney and Mr. Crowley will be happy to negotiate.
Yes, some of us around the table were around in 89 to 93, and unfortunately that did happen in New Hampshire quite frequently. And you know, the concern for your town council is going to be to make sure if there is a failure, and we hope that they never will be ever again, that there's sufficient security for the town to do what it needs to do to protect public impacts, right? So if you were half excavated, you wouldn't want the water to be, you know, any worse than it is currently. So there's ways to do that, and there's a process to do that.
And it will happen.
I'm sure you'll make it happen. You know, it'll be a
You can count on it.
It'll be a condition, I'm sure, and Rob will make it happen.
Yeah. Anyone else before we adjourn? All right, go ahead,
I kind of
Tom.
remembered now. Thomas Lockett, Lock Haven Road. So I assume if this plan was to go through and we don't see the architecture plans for the buildings and how stuff is built inside, I'm assuming there would be some
floor plans, right?
Whatever length I-beams or beams coming in from Route 4 turning into the property. I don't know if those would be an extended length or longer than a flatbed on a standard 18-wheeler would be, and what impact of turning into the access way that during building that would take, and if it's going to be requiring any time to get in there and backing up traffic.
Are you talking about guardrails?
No, not guardrails, but if it's
construction,
if you're moving material into the site, is there going to be anything that's going to be an extended period of time that the turn of a truck would take?
The DOT will look at that in their work, and I will tell you, and someone talked about traffic, people that operate these trucks don't like to buy more fuel than they need to, and they have traffic managers that look at traffic patterns on the road, and they avoid peak hours generally. Won't say every time, but it doesn't benefit them to have their trucks burning fuel sitting in traffic. So they schedule them generally on off-peak hours when they can get in and get out quickly and safely.
And the materials you mentioned, the beams, and probably the longest beams we have are actually, they sit on